recording. So yeah, just waiting for Philip. I know that he's got quite a few calls booked in with people. We slightly overrun yesterday, and he said, "Oh, I really have got to go. I've got to. I'm supposed to be on another call." So.
Did you get a good mix of actual small businesses as well as business support?
Yes. Yeah. There was. I think we had 3 that were non-members, and they were actually clients themselves, or there was one lady who worked for herself, but she was actually helping small business. So, but yeah, it was very, very interesting.
Yeah,
so, yeah. That's my dog.
I thought it might be.
He did have the problem I have with him is if anybody walks past or anything, he actually starts barking. So, did have a little barking session yesterday.
Oh.
I had to go on to mute, but
yeah,
nightmare. It's like a child, a naughty child.
Oh.
So Matthew, who recommended you to come onto the call? Is it one of our members who was supporting you?
It came through an organisation I do some work with, and so I spotted the email that came through. So I thought I'll give it a to try and see what comes out of it.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. Right, he hasn't come on yet. So yeah, just waiting for Philip then.
Well, our dog's just come to join me now.
Oh, is it?
What dog do you got?
It's a golden Labrador.
Oh wow! I've got a Cocker Spaniel, so he's a bit crazy.
I've just got a 3-year-old.
So I take it, are you all working from home at the moment then, or?
Yes, yeah.
What's P&E doing, Melissa? Are you all working from home remotely?
Yeah, we're all working from home, but thankfully we kind of expected this to happen, so we had everything in place to be able to just pick up our stuff and literally go home. So we're really fortunate in that, and everything seems to be working, touch wood. Good. It just means we can continue to offer the support to our clients, and it's quite good because we've ended up teaching them how to use their phones and how to use webcams and all sorts of stuff. So actually, it's been really good.
That was one of the things that somebody said yesterday, that she hasn't used so much technology so much before, and obviously keeping in contact with your families as well. I've got a small grandchild and one on the way, which is due any day now. And
oh, crazy!
Yeah, we're really sad about it because obviously we won't get a chance to meet. Well, we don't know if it's a girl or a boy yet, so yeah, we are quite worried about that. But Philip's here now.
Morning, Carol. Sorry,
morning, Philip. How are you doing? That's okay. No worries. No worries.
Thank you.
We can hear you, but we can't see you at the minute.
Oh, sorry. That's true. I have to. Yeah. One day I'll get used to this technology. But,
we were just saying about how the different ways now we're all trying to communicate with each other, and it's brought sort of modern technology to the forefront, really, hasn't it? So
hasn't it just? Yeah.
Yeah.
And some of us are faster at getting used to it than others.
Yeah.
I'm
getting there. Okay, so thanks, Philip. Alex is going to try and join us. He's got some issues that he's trying to deal with at the moment, but he said he'll try and get on as soon as possible. But, we've got a few members on with us, and a member's client as well, so which is quite good. So we've got a fair mix, and also from different areas of the country as well. So, but first of all, the whole reason that we put these briefings together was following a meeting that Alex and Phillip had a couple of weeks ago, a phone meeting, and Phillip was really keen to engage with our members and their clients as well, and just to have an understanding of the issues that they're facing. So I think the format of the meeting will be that everybody will introduce themselves, and then Phillip will open the floor to questions and answers, and then we'll just go from there. So
that's good.
I'm Carol Daniels, Operations Manager for National Enterprise Network. So Aileen, did you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, Aileen Evans. I'm the Executive Director of the Hindburn Enterprise Trust. We're in Lancashire. We work in Lancashire and in parts of the Northwest, helping small businesses to start and grow. And we've been doing that for nearly 40 years.
Good.
Matthew, did you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name's Matthew Ridsdale. I run a company called Canon PR, which is based in South Yorkshire. I'm here as we do a lot of work with one of your members, so that's how we found out about it. So I thought we'd just come along and see if we can find out a little bit about what's happening.
Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah, I'm Jeff Ranson. I work for Startup Croydon. We're the enterprise agency based in Croydon, South London. We provide startup bias training, and also manage the office accommodation to approximately 37 businesses.
Excellent. And Melissa?
Good morning, everybody. So I'm Melissa. I'm from PNE, which is based in Newcastle. We offer business support to start-up and established businesses across the North East region. And we deliver training, one-to-one mentoring, coaching, and access to finance and property as well.
Thanks, Melissa. So we've got a small group this morning, Phillip. We've had a couple of people cancel this morning, but they're booked on to tomorrow and Thursday sessions. So
Okay.
That's a good thing. But, so over to you.
Good morning, all, and thank you for joining us this morning. So let me just tell you a little bit about the Small Business Commissioner's Office, if I may. We were established in 2017 under the Enterprise Act 2016 with a remit to support small businesses in layman's terms who are suffering from late payment from their large customers, and to change the culture and get rid of poor payment practice that exploits small business. I've been in post since the beginning of February as interim Small Business Commissioner for a period of 6 months, which I think might be extended slightly given the slowness in recruiting a permanent replacement for the previous incumbent. So we'll see how long my tenure lasts, but it's certainly till the summer, if not beyond. I think there are 3 strands to what we do. The first is advice, support and signposting. So we have a website which is smallbusinesscommissioner.gov.uk, and we have a team of caseworkers who take queries online or over the phone, and we offer advice on good practice in terms of managing credit and cash flow. We signpost to other organisations that can support, that offer various types of support and so on, including mediation and other things. And we also mediate and investigate. And by mediate, I mean where a business has tried to get payment from a large customer and has failed, we will intervene and talk to that customer for them. And certainly in the last 48 hours, we've had 2 examples where we've picked up the phone, talked to a big organisation that has told their small supplier they're not going to be paid. And within a matter of hours, payment has mysteriously appeared in the small supplier's bank account. And I think it's fair to say that a call from the Small Business Commissioner has a little bit more impact than a call from a small business that is treated as fairly unimportant. So we do that, and we also investigate. So where we see examples of poor practice, we can investigate and we can issue non-binding recommendations on the business to improve their practice. So if you look at our website, you'll see there are 7 or 8 reports over the last couple of years. And those effectively call out bad behaviour, and we go public and talk about it as a way of getting the business to improve its practice, and also acting as a deterrent to other businesses that might want to follow similar bad practice and treat their small suppliers badly. So that investigation route is limited in terms of what we can do under legislation, but it is an opportunity for us to talk to big business. And we're currently talking to all the businesses that we have named over the last couple of years and reviewing what their practice is now to try and make sure that it's improving. And the third element of what we do is the sort of bigger picture, changing the late payment culture in the UK. And we do that by virtue of a whole range of things, in terms of making sure that businesses are doing the right thing and behaving in the right way, and where they're not calling it out. Currently, clearly our role has been affected by COVID-19, as has everybody's. So rather than travelling around the country, I'm sitting in my office at home and running webinars and Q&A sessions like this, almost back to back at the moment. And what we're trying to do is to, make businesses aware that we exist, because frankly, the awareness of our offices is much less than it should be. And also to support small businesses that are having specific problems. So right now, the most valuable sessions I'm having are sessions where we're going live with Q&A. Businesses are ringing up with a particular problem which I can try and answer. And that clearly is more dynamic than preaching theory. And it means that businesses can resonate with what they're hearing, and get involved in it. And certainly a call I did last week with Enterprise Nation generated 2 queries where we have now obtained payment for a business, and 1 more where we're writing to the big supplier. So it's around trying to be very dynamic and active. And we are in the process today of writing to a number of large organisations that we know have written out to their suppliers without any warning, telling them they're going to extend the payment terms, and asking them to have a conversation with us to explain the extent to which they've thought about that. And we're writing out to some of the good examples we're seeing, thanking them for what they're doing. And my current agenda is trying to move this whole debate from the transactional to the emotional. And what I'm saying to big business is, when you make a decision that says you're going to delay payments by a month, that means that you're extending your cash flow a bit and you're ticking some items on a spreadsheet. For the small business that receives the email, it may well be that you're stopping them putting food on their table for the next fortnight. And you need to think about the impact you have, and we need to humanise these conversations a bit more. I think that's probably enough for me for now, Carol, so back to you.
Okay, thank you, Philip. So if we open up the floor to any questions.
Could I come in there, Carol?
Yeah.
Because I had a good example yesterday of I think of what Philip is talking about. We had a phone call from a business who transports goods across the UK and indeed into Europe, and has built his business up from one truck and now is ready to buy his 5th. His main contractor has just told him he's going to have to move his credit terms, payment terms, from 14 days to 60 days because of the current situation. I've only taken the call from him yesterday. I haven't got the details of the contractor that he's working with. But is that somebody you would recommend then, Philip, to contact yourselves? And
yeah, I mean, yes, Aileen, ideally what we'd like is a copy of the email that he's been sent.
Right.
Because I can, and the letters we're drafting today basically are saying, I'm dismayed to see what you're doing. And I think we have to recognise here that all businesses are going through trauma. And for the big contractor, this obviously makes sense to extend payment terms. And in some cases, the impact on their supply chain may be minimal, and therefore it's probably a good thing to do. But they need to think about the impact and whether or not it is the food on the table example, or whether it's just the small supplier's cash flow issue. And the thing for me that's important about this is that we want these businesses to be having conversations, not sending out blanket emails. I mean, it's well publicised in the press last week, so I can talk about it. Wetherspoons wrote to all their suppliers and just said, "We're not going to pay you till the pubs reopen." Now, you know, that approach makes sense commercially, and they have to make some tough decisions. But what they could have done was to have looked at their supplier base and just analysed it and segmented it, and perhaps talked individually to the smallest ones to understand what the impact would be, because not doing that to a handful of small businesses might enable those small businesses to survive. And I know that the response I get will be, well, they could have talked to us and we'd have been sympathetic. But for a small business that receives that email, you know, they're now not sleeping, they're in desperate straits, they're desperately worried. And the last thing they think about is ringing up the chief executive Wetherspoons to have a conversation. So we need big businesses to be thinking in these humanistic terms. So on that specific one, Aileen, if you can, Carol, share my email afterwards by all means.
Will do,
If you can send me some details of that, then I will add that to my list of people I'm writing to.
Okay, thank you.
And sorry, just to say, my letter is saying to them, think about this, please can we have a conversation to chat it through. So I'm trying to make this not confrontational and sort of, you know, bureaucratic. I'm just trying to say, can we have a chat to understand and make sure that you're thinking in the right terms about your supplier base?
Yes, okay.
Okay, Matthew, have you got any questions that you'd like to ask?
Not specifically about late payments, no.
Have you got any? Is there anything else related to?
Well, I think one of the things that's concerning me a little bit at the moment is the government provisions that have been put in place to support small businesses. And what I seem to have what I've noticed is that there seems to be quite a big gap where people are falling through the floor with this. One of them being you know, sole directors, for instance, that run limited companies, in terms of how the support applies to them.
Okay, Matthew. So this isn't my this isn't within my remit, but I'm pretty close to it because I'm sort of obviously talking to small businesses and organisations and so on. I saw a tweet this morning from Enterprise Nation that said they had, if I'll find it, they had now confirmed with HMRC that sole directors could get some support through through this scheme. I think one of the problems is that all these schemes are being put in place, and you know, we're not in a position yet to know what they really mean, and we're trying to work through the detail, aren't we? And that's causing a bit of a time lag, and you know, we know that government's in disarray trying to get these things in place, understandably, given the lack of time they've had and so on, and the detail is somewhat lacking in a lot of areas, and everyone wants answers immediately, understandably, but that's a real problem. Let me find this. Okay, here's a tweet from Enterprise Nation this morning, 2 hours ago. There's been lots of confusion, but we've got confirmation from the government that sole directors of limited companies who are the sole employee can access the job retention scheme if they had a PAYE salary on or before the 28th of February. I don't know if that helps, but if you look at the Enterprise Nation website, that will be posted on there, and they've got a guide.
Right, okay, I'll look into that.
But I think that the problem we have is that you know, everyone's trying to get the detail, and at the same time as I think government's trying to write the detail, and I think that's a challenge for everybody at the moment. And understandably, small businesses want the answers now, not tomorrow. And I think, you know, everyone's in the same place. And I think what we're seeing is that the rules are shifting and being modified and tweaked as we go along. So, you know, we keep seeing things saying, well, this was what it said when it first came out, but actually now it's slightly different because governments recognise there's a batch of people who are, you know, impacted and caught out by this, and we need to recognise that and pull them into the fold. And I think that will continue to happen in the days ahead. But equally, I think there will be a population of people that do miss out simply by virtue of circumstances, and I don't think any solution can be everything for everybody. I think that's a real shame, but that's going to be the reality. I think you know, some people.
The other thing that's thrown me a little bit as well is when it comes to sort of employees themselves, and so obviously as an employee, trying to do the right thing by your staff, but it seems to me that you either have to furlough your entire, furlough certain members of staff and make them, basically, not work for the business during this time, or otherwise. But if you put them on, say, short hours, then there's no help there for doing that, even though you're trying to do the right thing, which seems a bit of a strange situation.
Yeah, so I absolutely buy into that, and I had an example last week of a pub that wanted to do home deliveries for the vulnerable, and therefore employ a chef and an assistant chef for a couple of hours a day to do that. And under the job retention scheme, they couldn't, because they either had to put them on furlough completely or not. And the question was, wouldn't it make more sense if the employer could claim the missed wages 80% rather than the whole salary 80%? And that would seem to be a win for everybody. And I passed that into the policy team at government back end of last week. I know it's being looked at, but I have no idea where and how it will come out the other side. But it's certainly, I think that's a common concern, that actually people, employees could do something, and therefore the employer would have to claim less money from the government than the full wages, and that would make some sense. I suspect the challenge is in how that's interpreted and how you make that work fairly, and how you avoid getting sort of fraudulently caught out by people saying people are not working when they are, and so on. So thankfully it's above my pay grade to set the rules. I think we'll see some. I know that's being looked at. I think it's best I can say.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think one of the questions that was asked yesterday, wasn't it? It was around sole directors and when they're taking a salary, about being furloughed, and then whether or not they can then still keep in contact with their customers, and because obviously the furlough rules are that you don't do anything, but actually if you look at it realistically, that's not going to happen, is it? Because you still got to keep your company going. But again, like you said, Philip, it's a changing thing all the time, isn't it? And I think it's as time goes on, these sort of questions will be asked, and then I'm sure, as you say, that it will be looked at, and then amendments will be made. So yeah. Okay. Jeff, have you got anything that you wanted to ask?
Well, first of all, thanks, Philip, for raising awareness with us regarding the small business question, and that we will be letting our members or our clients know about the offer. One of the things that it's not that we haven't actually had any inquiries or comments yet from any of our businesses or people we support, but one of the things that because they lease offices on a license to occupy on however long they want to with our services, our offices, but because they're not the landlords, we're the landlords. Technically, that they may not actually be eligible for the £10,000 payment. Most businesses would actually potentially be eligible for, and obviously that if they're expecting that, then to get that the has aspect or impacts on their cash flow, and if they are small businesses, it's going to be really potentially difficult for them to not continue on.
Okay, so this came up yesterday.
It did, didn't it? Mel raised that, didn't he? Yeah.
So the issue is that because these people are not paying rates, they don't fall into the category of rateable values, which mean they get the grant. And Mel yesterday sent me some details of his concerns, which are exactly the same as you've just expressed. And I sent them into Treasury yesterday afternoon to the policy team and said, can you look at this? I have no idea whether they will. I have no idea what answer they'll come up with, but we have made them aware of it. We have pushed it in there. So hopefully someone will be looking at it and taking a view on that.
Okay, thank you. And the other thing that just an observation that some of our other managers in their own businesses have found is that the banks, with regards to the coronavirus business interruption loan scheme, that the banks seem to be charging a lot of higher interest or wanting security, whereas the actual loan scheme suggests that under 250,000, so it would be unsecured. So it's just a thing that it's not as clear in terms of what actually or people can get, and what is expected is potentially mixed messages.
I think that's true. I mean, there was a lot of noise in the press over the weekend about the banks, and they were looking for personal guarantees, and they were pushing the interest rates up, and all sorts of things. And I think all the big four banks have come back and said they won't ask personal guarantees on these supported loans now. And I think generally the banks are trying to say the right thing. I think the reality is that whilst the chancellor's made the announcement and the bank boards have agreed they're going to do this and support it, getting down to the business relationship managers in high street and in the local centres is taking longer than everyone would like. And I just read paper this morning, and there's still stuff in there about the banks being inconsistent, and some banks claiming to have no knowledge of any of this stuff when people ring up and so on, which is slightly bizarre given how much news it's got. I think the reality is that we need to put pressure on the banks to do the right thing, and to recognise what the purpose of this is, and certainly we're doing that, and I know that all the business organisations are doing that. The FSB are making a lot of noise about this with the banks, as are the other business organisations, and I think we just need all to keep doing the same thing. And I think all of these things, I mean, I remember exactly the same thing with the old EFG loans in 2008, 2009, when the government was saying these were out there to support businesses, and the banks were claiming to have no knowledge of them and were setting their own terms and so on. And I think it's just, it's a matter of time for all this stuff. When we think where we've gone in the last 2.5 weeks, since the budget, which we thought was revolutionary and is now almost child's play compared to what we're seeing now. I think everything's moving at such a pace that things are just not catching up as they should. And I know that for small businesses, one of the frustrations is getting support and help. And we're taking a lot of calls from businesses who've tried every other government avenue and can't get through, so they're then trying us, and we're signposting them. But the government, I know that one particular government call centre took more calls last Monday than it normally takes in a year.
Wow.
When I say took more calls, I think it had more calls offered. I'm not sure how many it took, but that's the reality. When you multiply by a factor of 365, you start to get a sense of how big this is. And the small businesses quite rightly want quick answers. They don't want to wait for a fortnight until the details come out and they can see it. So what we're doing is pointing businesses to gov.uk website and businesssupport.gov.uk websites, because they are both being updated literally hourly. I get an alert every time the websites change, and I'm just getting more emails alerts than I frankly want. So they're constantly changing and keeping up to date. And we're pointing businesses to look at that and keep abreast of what's going on. But I think we all have to recognise that this is going to take some days and weeks to work its way through. And for small businesses that are really struggling hand to mouth, and feel they need an instant answer, I think the reality is that everyone is having to be a little bit more pragmatic than they might normally be. And therefore, if there are things they can't do, then what they need to do is have conversations and explain why they can't do them. But I think that generally, most businesses and organisations and government are going to be fairly tolerant, because they're going to have to be. They have little choice, frankly. So I think businesses need to recognise that. And my advice to small businesses is absolutely communicate. Do not sit there and say nothing. Just talk to people where you've got an issue and make sure they know what your issue is. And for the most part, I would hope businesses are going to be fairly sort of tolerant and flexible.
Okay, thank you. I see Alex has joined us now. Hello, Alex.
Welcome. Morning. Hi, guys. Everything all good?
No.
Morning.
Melissa, have you got some questions?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, the main reason why I booked on this session is I only had a very small knowledge of what the Small Business Commissioner's Office actually did. So thank you for giving us that, Philip, introduction. It's really useful. I think a lot of the businesses that we're supporting at the moment are quite new businesses. So they're newly self-employed, they're newly set up as directors, they haven't done self-assessments yet. And essentially those who have done self-assessments, who might get some money in June, are struggling, but those who have never done a self-assessment and are expecting to get absolutely nothing are going to close their businesses. And I was wondering if you heard on the grapevine of anything that's going to be on offer quite quickly other than universal credit.
No, I've not, if I'm honest. And I think, you know, we all recognise this is a gap, and there's been a lot of you know, media conversation and speculation about this. I think it's not. I don't speak for government, but I think if I was sitting in government's shoes, my concern would be that unless you've got something on which to base a decision, how do you stop wholesale fraud and the difficulty of people just claiming things have happened that haven't, and trying to get money out of the state, you know, for things they haven't done. And I absolutely sympathise with newly created, you know, entrepreneurial small businesses, but if I'm honest, I'm not, as I say, I'm not on the right pay grade, so maybe I don't need to. So I've been struggling to come up with a solution that would work in this situation. You know, I say I started business 6 months ago. I've earned £49,000. You know, I want 80% of £49,000 for the next 3 months, please. And how can I verify that? I mean, I guess you could do some sort of bank statement verification or something. I don't know. And I'm sure that there are bigger minds than mine looking at this, trying to work it out. But I'm struggling to work out how we fill all the gaps that exist. So I think there are a few, and I think there's going to be a difficulty.
Yeah, it's inevitable that there's going to be some gaps, and I think just one more question as well is at what point for our more established businesses should we direct them to get in touch with you guys, and what is the correct way of getting in touch with you? Is it an email address centrally or anything like that? Yeah,
so inquiries@smallbusinesscommissioner.gov.uk is the email address. Go on the website and click through to contact us, and there's links there, and they can click on it and contact us. And there's a phone number there as well. My advice to people is, if you've asked your customer to pay you a couple of times or 3 times and they're ignoring you, then talk to us and we can intervene and try and help.
Oh, that's brilliant. Thank you very much.
I'll be sending out the contact details as well, so that you've got them to hand if you obviously come across any clients that are having those kind of issues, and you think you want to refer it on to Philip and his team, then we'll certainly get those details out to you.
Thank you.
So is there anybody else who's got any other questions?
I just wonder, Philip, when obviously there's lots of things in place where lenders are being very helpful and making postponements on repayments for 3 months. We're finding people are getting that help. But if this goes beyond 3 months and lasts maybe twice as long, and I know we've no way of knowing how long it will be, what do you see then for, do you see the banks and so on still being able to extend that time?
Well, the honest answer is, Aileen, I have no idea.
No.
I think we're all in the same boat. But my speculation would be that actually when we get to a point close to 3 months and we're still in the same boat, everyone's just going to have to extend the 3 months to 6 months. I mean, there would be no benefit in suddenly withdrawing all this support and saying, well, it's going to stop, because that just means we get to the point where we were 3 months ago when everyone starts to fail. So I think it's inevitable that you know, whatever the timescales are, we're going to see this extend or not as need dictates. And I think you know, everyone's hope is that it doesn't need to, because you know, I read in the paper this morning that they reckon 1 in 5 small businesses will not come out of this. And from my conversations, I think that's probably about right. I mean, you know, and that's a tragedy. I mean, it really is. You know, for businesses that have put, you know, huge amounts of blood, sweat, and tears into getting businesses created, to see it all taken away for no fault of their own is really distressing. So, you know, I guess, you know, we all have to do what we're told and try and accelerate the getting to an end of this, and then we can see things improve.
Yeah, thank you.
Alex, have you got any questions that you wanted to ask?
No, the only thing I was going to raise, Carol, was some of our tenants have already been contacted by the local authorities asking them to fill out the form so that they can start claiming their £10,000. That was coming through yesterday afternoon. So there is things which are moving, stuff's happening. Obviously, we're reacting at the times when we know what we're able to do. But as Philip said earlier, keep onto the websites, keep looking at them, and as soon as we can start imparting that knowledge from a mentor perspective and an NEN perspective, we're just still going to be keeping to feed that out there, because it's a moving feast. It really is a moving feast.
Yeah.
Philip,
Alex, what geographical location do you cover, just so we know who's received these letters?
Yeah, sure. We're based down in Suffolk, Norfolk, and Cambridgeshire in Essex.
So
one of the things I've been doing is talking very, very closely to all of the local authorities and saying to them, how are you managing this process? I also know that some local authorities as well have created their own budget funds in the locality area to support those who are newly self-employed or need some form of, I'll call it a crisis grant or a crisis loan to support them with their business. So it's very, very worthwhile talking to your local authorities as well, because they may have their own independent packages.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, Carol, we've had mixed reactions from local authorities. We've one or two where they've actually set up a fund in advance of getting the central pot, and that's been really good. On the other hand, we've had feedback from some where they've said, I think they've probably spoken to the wrong person, but I think the problem has been with some of the local authorities, maybe should have put something out on their website sooner, just to say this is going to be happening, and this is, give them some contact details, because they haven't always realised who they needed to contact.
Yeah, no, I agree with that, Eileen. And I think one of the other frustrations we had locally was our growth hub had just put on a recorded message saying, please leave your details, which meant that a number of businesses were getting rather frustrated. And from our perspective, I'm saying that's fine. We can have human contact. We may not always have the answers, but we'll be able to support you in those sorts of routes as well. And where I'm aware that certain organisations were potentially in redundancy situations because of the finances, they've gone to get support from the growth up. You said, sorry, we only support growing businesses. So there's different responses from different areas at the moment.
Yeah, that's what we found.
Yeah.
Okay, is there anything else that you wanted to add, Philip?
No, nothing at all. Only to reinforce the fact that we are here to help small business, and if you want to point anybody at us, or we can do anything for you or for your clients or your people you're helping, then please let me know.
Yeah, excellent.
I just ask Philip, it's support for social enterprise. That because they will actually potentially be in the same situation in terms of late payments. That are they eligible to come to you as well?
Yeah, I think so. I can't see why not. I mean, our remit is to deal with any business that has up to 50 employees. So I would call a social enterprise network, a small business. So yeah.
Great, thank you.
Okay. So has anybody got anything else they want to add? If not, we can perhaps draw the meeting to a close.
No, I think that's been really useful to find out about the Small Business Commissioner, the role, and how there's that help there, because it'll help us as well when we're dealing with inquiries, that we know that there is that organisation there to do more for them than we can.
Yeah, good. Thank you.
Superb. Thanks once again, Philip. Really appreciated your time this morning.
You're very welcome. Have a good day, everybody, and stay safe.
Yeah. Thank you.
Andrew, stay safe, stay well.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye, everybody. Thank you all very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.